Hey guys, thanks for joining us here at Salty Ginger Talk. If you're a returning listener, it's great to have you back. If you're new to the channel, really glad you joined us. Hope you like what you hear. So again, we keep finding awesome people. We got another awesome guest tonight. Gitte joins us from Denmark. She is a leadership, I don't know if expert's the right way to say it, but she brings a vast experience in both the corporate world and raising a family. Moved from Denmark, spent some time in Australia, has worked in multiple different industries and multiple different roles. And she went out on her own about 3 years ago. And she really tries to coach and teach people about how to look forward into the future and see what the environment in the future is going to be like. And then tailor your leadership and your communications with your people to match what's coming down the road. Super intelligent lady, super interesting, and I think you're going to love everything she has to talk about, and I think you'll find it fascinating. So, without further ado, let's just bring Gitte onto the podcast now. So, here we go. So, Gitte, welcome to Salty Ginger Talk. Thank you so much for joining us tonight.
Thank you very much for inviting me. I'm so pleased.
Yeah, for sure. I've been excited to have you on because you're the core of our conversation is new. We haven't talked about what we're going to talk about in depth on the podcast, and I love exposing our listeners to new thoughts and new ideas. And when you and I spoke a couple months ago in our intro call, I kind of explained that our podcast is about people who want to intentionally build a life for themselves. And that can be anything. It doesn't have to be about money or profession or relationship. It can be whatever you want. You get to choose what it is you focus on. Our whole point is you should choose what you focus on, and you should be intentional about your actions and how you structure your life so that you're working towards something that has meaning and purpose to you.
Mm.
And you we'll get into it further,
Mm.
obviously, but your approach, and you bring a ton of experience, and from a leadership perspective, I think a lot of what you talk about will really resonate with our audience because those are the kind of things they're thinking about and talking about. So I've been very excited to bring you on the podcast. So that's my little brief interlude. But we love to start having our guests just give us a background of who they are. Talk a little bit about how you grew up, where you grew up, how you made your way through the adult world to where you are now, and then we'll go back and do kind of a deep dive on all the interesting stuff that you talk about.
Mm. Nice. Well, I am sitting here in Denmark, so I'm in Europe. I'm born in Europe, and I have a sister. And I think I would pinpoint a couple of things throughout my life that have made me who I am right now. So I'm here from Denmark, but I have also, my parents got divorced, and it influenced me in the sense that they got divorced when I was around 13. And when I was in my late teenage years, I thought, well, they couldn't make it sort of their marriage. So there's one thing I really wanted to do was to follow my heart. And I've tried to do that. So the first thing I did was I thought, I need to find the love of my life. You don't do that immediately, but I ended up finding my husband, and we've been married, and we have 3 boys, and they're now grown up and have their own lives and moved away. But that was something that came out of being a big sister and looking after, everyone, making sure that everyone was happy. But it has influenced me more than I think I would admit in the beginning. So that's one thing. Then I've been to, school, high school, and what was it I wanted to do? So I went to business school because that's what my parents did. And I've had a great career in corporate life, but I also felt that there was something more to it than just working and being in that sort of environment. Having said that, I also, when I was, we had three boys, and when we had two of them, my husband was traveling a lot, and so it was like the grind, and the boys were little, and we were thinking of, could we live our lives in a different way? So my husband was lucky to get a job in Australia. So we gave up everything and we moved to Australia. And we had, actually, our third son is born in Sydney. So we decided we wanted to be away for 3 to 5 years. And I gave up my job and I spent my time, 5 years with my children and doing voluntary work and taking an MBA, not a full one, but a semester, and, doing other things. So I had could say quite a big break, and it was in the 90s. So people were like, what are you doing? You should be, you should, you are just choosing to be a mom. But I thought I was, again, I followed what I felt was the right thing for me to do, but obviously not for everyone else. But in our family, it was. And we came back, and then I went back to work, and I've been working until, being employed in various roles. I can come back to that until 3 years ago when I decided to become self-employed. So I've worked in the retail industry. I worked in insurance. I worked in the car industry, and it has been in areas like purchasing, marketing, sales, over to more business development, operations, and supply chain. So I've seen lots of different industries and cultures, and it has been always with being a team leader of a team, and looking after both the delivery but also the people. Throughout those years, I also felt that something is getting worse or could be better in these cultures or these companies. Not that I've had great times in them, and done a lot of good things, but I felt that people are not getting. There's more and more of the blame game. The culture is being more sour, and it is much more performance culture, and of course you should perform, and of course you should make money, but the balance of it, the way we are doing things was getting sort of it was frustrating me. So I thought, there's other things I would like to do, and I started back in 2010 to educate myself more and more, because I couldn't find that kind of education within the corporate system. It was not what, sometimes it's more just plain old knowledge, but not so much personal development. So I started sort of a whole new track, but at both my own pace and with my own money, and at home after work. And that ended up in me saying, okay, now it's time. And then I gave up my job, and I'm here doing something completely different, which is, I have my own company. It's called Evoke New Leadership. And it has a concept which is energetic leadership, and we will go back into that. So it is a about doing keynotes. It's about workshops with corporate companies or companies in general. It's about mentorship, and it's very much also about having talks, conversations about it like we are having right now. So how can we make a better world for all of us? I think
Love.
that will be the first long answer.
No, that's great. I really appreciate it. And
Mm,
there's tons of stuff for us to talk about in kind of the broad strokes that you just laid out. Let's go back. It's funny because I had a very similar, although my parents did not divorce until they divorced. So my wife and I also have been married for a while, 30 plus
mm,
years, and have raised three boys as well. And ours are grown and out in the world as well.
mm,
And my parents didn't divorce until right after my wife and I got married. But
mm,
they should have divorced much sooner. They did not get along well. They were really good as parents of young children. As the children grew up, they didn't have a lot of stuff in common. They kind of went separate ways and had different thoughts about what life after family should look like. And so there was a lot
mm,
of friction
mm,
between them. And that had a very similar effect on me to what you just described. Because I
mm,
can remember being a kid, like 8, 9, 10 years old, a little boy, and sitting on my bed while my parents were arguing with each other, saying, I'm not going to live like that when I grow up. I'm going to be in a good relationship with someone I really
mm,
like being around, that I
mm,
get along with.
mm,
And that's what I did. And so
mm,
I had very similar. It was
mm,
interesting. You're the first person I've heard talk about it similarly to the way
mm,
I think about it.
mm. That's nice. Yeah. That's a that it's interesting when you look at your sort of timeline and see what has actually happened, and there's something which is a red thread in what you have, the decisions that you have made, even if you are not conscious about them. That is interesting for me um, to see that, and especially one thing that has sort of come up, which is the thing about, finding back to who you really are at a, you could say at a late in your life. But this is, for me, it has been this thing about being much more in tune or intuitive. So in tune with I call it my soul, but my inner core. Um, and in what I described earlier on, I call it, I've tried to follow my heart, but I realize now that I have needed to even wanted to open up my consciousness, my intuitive sort of source even further, and that is what has been lacking in the years in corporate life, where it's much more ego driven, and it's much more unbalanced, really. You are not to be a whole. Now I'm putting it a little bit on the edge, but you're not to be a whole human being,
Mm.
and that is, what I'm then looking very much into now. So, so the thing about being much more present and much more curious is what I'm using in my work now.
But it sounds like, yeah, I get it, and that's very well said. It feels like, from what you described, you've tried to do that your whole life. I mean, you've made decisions that seemed right to you that weren't necessarily supported by society or people. Like, they're not expected, right? I guess is the best way to say it. And
Mm,
it's interesting. My wife has been a stay-at-home mom raising our kids, and she worked on and off, but she really was never attracted to building a career.
mm,
Um, but like, she is the glue. Like, it really irritates me, and I find that women do it a lot more than men when they speak about women that stay at home. Like, what do you do all day? Like, you
mm,
really, you have
mm,
absolutely no idea what that life is like. I actually had someone say to me one time, must be nice to have your wife stay at home. You can have
mm,
food ready and your house is clean. And I said, you just described a maid. I didn't marry
mm.
a maid.
No.
I married my wife. And for what it's worth, my house is usually a wreck. It's
Mm,
rare that there's food ready when we get home. And I have three
mm,
awesome, well adjusted sons because
mm,
that's what she does all day.
mm,
And she is excellent at it. And
mm,
our joke was always if I had stayed home and she had gone out into the world and worked, because she's very smart and very capable,
mm,
she would have easily been able to do that. She wouldn't have liked it because it's not what she enjoys, but she could have done it. She's got the
mm,
bandwidth
mm,
to do that. Our boys, everything, our house would have been immaculate. Everything would have been spotless and perfect. And our kids would have been in therapy for the rest of their lives from being
mm.
around me for, for that much time. She's just a great intuitive
Mm,
person.
mm,
And you've talked a lot already about being intuitive. And she's the
mm,
most emotionally intelligent person that I know. And I've learned so much from being with her for so long. It
mm,
just has made me a much better person to be around her.
mm.
But taking that back to you, was that hard for you to do what you wanted in the face of, call it criticism, call it questioning, call it whatever you want? I'm not trying to browbeat people, but you had to you already talked about some people saying, "What are you doing? Like you could be building a great career and you're staying at home with kids." Was it hard for
Mm.
you to do that, even though you thought it was the right thing to do?
Not that decision. That was not difficult. It was, it felt so right. I was
Mm,
just so fed up with the, I was just tired, I think. But it also had something to do with the family being together. I know that, of course, we had to get some money, and so my husband worked. But it had then for a couple of years or 5 years, it was a different kind of life. It was more calm and quiet in that sense. And then we also got the chance, and that was, we could also have done it maybe just being in Denmark, but we wanted to do it, have some adventure. And my husband has always been traveling with his job as he's in sales in the slaughter industry with slaughterhouses, and they are not built in Denmark. They are built all over the world.
mm,
So a lot of them also in the US. So that was a way for for me, also crucial time in our family when they were little, that we had a nice time together. So that decision was not difficult. I was more surprised with the reaction to it, because I don't see, we are living a life that is longer and longer. So why is it that, when you have children and they are within your life, living with you for 20 years or something, why is it that you should have your whole career and everything, happening in those 20 years?
mm,
Why is it that we cannot have some, I call it breaks, but where you do something differently, or and that is actually something that is taking place much more now. That you can either say, okay, I'll go traveling, or I will work part-time for a period, or I will not work for a period, but then I'll be supported by my partner, or however we decide to do it. So so it's also a part of how society evolves in how we can, put together our lives. So it's not a matter of not wanting to work and not wanting to. We have a lot of discussions about that in Denmark, or when working hours are declining, or people. It's not because people do not want to work. It's just they want to structure it in a way that's more flexible. Um, So maybe I was just a bit early on, a pioneer in the 90s doing something that was odd, which is, yeah, it's part of my life being the odd one out. I think my husband called me, "You're not normal."
But normal's no fun. Like
No, no, you're not normal. I am not normal. I am who I am. So,
I yeah, but so it's funny because I've always known, just me personally, I've always known I'm not normal. Like I've known that about myself my entire life. I know I think differently than a
yeah.
lot of people. Sometimes that's good, sometimes it's not so good.
Mm,
But I know I've always known that that's true, but I've also known that's who I am, and
mm,
I've embraced that, and it's worked out well for me on the whole. Like I say, it's not always great. Like you can find yourself at odds with the majority of people, and it can put you
mm.
in some difficult situations sometimes. But to me, it's always been more important to be true to myself and who I am than to just go along with everybody just simply to get along if I feel strongly about something, you know?
Mm.
So yeah, for what it's worth, I agree with your approach, and we'll get into that further. It feels like now people are asked to make binary decisions where they're not necessary. Like it doesn't need to be just A or just B. There can be some scale and some balance between those things, and it doesn't feel like we do a very good job of balancing that as a society. Now, I will say, I think there's all these weirdo things about the older generation thinks and does this, and the younger generation thinks and does that, and there's probably some truth to those things, just how people were raised and the experiences they had in the world. But I do think the younger generations, call them our kids, I think they're much more in tune with the fact that you shouldn't just live to work, that you should work to live, and they're more intentional about those choices. And I personally think that's a very good thing. I think that's a good
Oh,
thing. You got to
mm.
balance it, but I think it's a good thing on the whole.
Oh, very much so. I can see that from, my own kids, and they are, much more uh, um, aware of and much more conscious about what they want and what they do not want. And they also, like, do I want to work 80 hours a week? Because no, I do not want to do that. I don't want that kind of career. Then I have maybe not so much money, but then that is not important to me because I want whatever, So they are, yeah, I admire the younger generations, and not just my kids, but in general, but also because they're speaking up, they're having the courage to take the conversations with both their parents, but also with their employees, or but not speaking up in a sort of uh, aggressive way, but just having the conversation. We actually here we have a voice, and we are here to be heard. And as they say, okay, we also have a lot of issues in the world, so now you also need to listen to us. So they do have a point, but and you could say, why is it that we did not? I can talk for myself. I have been more sort of a pleaser person, and that is something that I have been having had to work with. Put my boundaries primarily to sort of, protect myself and find back to who is it I want to be and who is it I am. But I think that's one thing. It's a personal thing, but it's also a thing in evolution. We are becoming more and more aware and more conscious, and we're then daring to have conversations, both with ourselves, but also with our relatives and with our in the society and everything. So so that is also sometimes I get a little bit, there's a lot of talk about right now, where we divide all the generations up, boomers and X and, whatever. And it's like, now everything else from generation Z is not okay. And that is to me wrong, because we all have our advantages. And so it's more about, for me, it's more about understanding, where is it this person comes from, is rounded by, just like, if you come from a different country or, speaks a different language or whatever. That's interesting.
Yeah, or even a different economic circumstance, right? So if
Yeah.
like the United States has 350 million people, if you are whatever, one of Bill Gates' children, you're growing up. There's just no getting around it. You grew up very differently than someone that has a father or a mother that's a plumber or a school teacher or a nurse or whatever, right? And I'm not at all placing value on either of those. I'm not saying one is better or worse. I'm simply saying they're different because they are different. And I love Albert Einstein's quote where he said, everyone is a genius depending on the circumstance, but if you judge a fish's intelligence by its ability to climb a tree, you're not going to think it's very smart. And I think it's a really intelligent way to think about things. And I too have been in leadership positions for a long time. And one of the things I learned a while ago, fortunately, I'm lucky in that when I screw stuff up, which I have done a lot of in my life, I have made a lot of mistakes and done a lot of things wrong. But I try to learn from those and I apply those learnings to the next thing that I try, and I get a little bit better every time I do it. And people have asked me, how have you been successful? And I always say, I've made a lot of mistakes. That's how I've been successful, and I've learned from them. But one of the things I've learned is it's your job as a leader to find people's value and put them in positions to be as successful as possible with the skills and abilities that they're strongest at. Right. And that's something that is very important to me. On your website, I love this statement that you've got here on the businesses are facing two major challenges. The second one in particular really resonated with me. The most important competitive parameter of the future, and thus competence, is the mastery of energetic language, intuition, and the ability to create coherence between the purpose of employees' personal lives and the purpose of the organization. And that just really resonated with me when I read it. Can you talk a little bit about how you came to that conclusion? And then we can kind of have a deeper conversation about what you're actually saying there, because I think it's very, very profound.
Yes, it's linking back to, I have the subtitle also on the book, Energetic Leadership, which is when modern life design collides with old leadership habits, it is time to change, you could say. But I also write there in the subtitle, it is time to tap into intuition and unleash our energetic sense of the future. So what is it I'm saying in those two sentences is we talk very much in corporate life or in, having a business, or it could also be in a society that, we have a purpose, or do we have a purpose? A company has a purpose. Some companies do only have a turnover, and they don't even have a purpose, or they don't think about it. But lots of, medium to bigger ones, they have a purpose, vision, a mission, and whatever. And they write it on their website, and they have some values, and they put it on the posters and whatnot. And And we've had that over a couple of decades, a century or so. But what we're seeing now is that people are getting more and more conscious about how they want to live their own lives. So what is it my purpose, you could say, in my life is going to be? And when we start to be more conscious about that, because we are fed up with the old way that, the world is being ruled, or companies are being ruled, and whatever, we are beginning to open up our consciousness and having the courage to start and build a life and also a living that is that resonates with our own energy, or with our soul, or whatever your heart, or whatever you can call it. And it is not necessarily something that is, that you are going to be Gandhi or something big, all of us, but it's something that is relevant to you. And what previously companies have had employees that are more or less like a brick. You can put them in anywhere in a company, and you should do this, and more or less I'm putting it on the edge, shut up, and then you can get your pay and whatever. But now we're seeing a company with a purpose. But on the other hand, all the employees are starting to have their own purpose. So if you have a company like with maybe 100 employees, the CEO of a company will now have to relate much more to all these 100 of purposes in order to make sure that if that company is going to be attractive in the future, it will need to involve the employees and relate to what is it your purpose is going to be, or is it how connecting to what we are doing. So I don't believe that we will not see companies having sort of the same structures. They can be organized in different ways, different organizational forms, or like we've just had the COVID, and a lot of people, think now we're all going to work from home and no one will come back to work. But I think organizations will find out their own way of, it's just because you can use that as an example. So you might be an IT company, and you think it's important that we are at the office because it's important for this company to be physical in the office because we are very creative and doing a lot of development. But other organizations will find it more flexible and better for them to have a mix of how they are at home or in the office. So this purpose focus is increasing more and more, and we are seeing it in lots of different trends. If you look into this, into the future, why is it is like that? And there's a lot of reasons for that.
Yeah, and it's I'll be interested to hear your perspective on this. When I think about it, what you just talked about, this is a fairly new phenomena for people, because until there's probably, so I'm 53, and so I'm right in the middle of Generation X. And my parents were both baby boomers, and they were probably the first generation that had the luxury of thinking about more than just surviving and,
Mm,
making their way in the world, because you've got the Industrial Revolution that happened in the late 1800s, and then you had two world wars at the beginning of the 20th century. And then after that is the first time that people could kind of not have to worry about where their food was coming from and not have to worry about putting a roof over their heads, and life
mm,
expectancies got longer. And so now you've got people living longer. They can be more intentional about what they do. They don't have to, it's not, hey, if you don't plant your crops in the spring, you won't have a harvest in the fall and you'll starve in the winter and you won't survive. But that hasn't been that long since that was the case for most people. So these issues that you're talking about and suggesting ways to approach are pretty new for people.
mm,
So
mm,
we're figuring things out. And then you lump in all the technological advances that kind of started happening in the 80s and then accelerated through the 90s and 2000s. And you've introduced a whole new set of circumstances into an already young and changing thought process for
mm.
people. So there's a lot of stuff going on, right?
Oh, yes, and very much so. And you mentioned the technology thing, and you could say, when is it one thing that is dividing things is the internet. So you have the generations before the internet, and now we have the internet, and like my children, they are the ones that grew up with the internet,
Mm.
from their childhood and onward. So I'm sort of it just right in the middle of it. I can remember when we did not have it. So you can see that these generations coming from the internet and onward uh, are, because they have the technology, and we all have technology now, but the technology is actually uh, it's revealing a lot of you could say issues that we have in society. So it's not that a lot of the things that we are seeing as crisis or whatever right now, it's not that it's just happened within the last 10 years. It's been building up. Uh, and what technology is doing it's actually revealing it. And it's also, what can you say? It's enforcing the both the effect and the development of something that is happening. Like, um, when we think of AI or technology in that respect, uh, some people would be very frightened, scared about it. It is taking us to not a very nice dimension. Uh, you could also say, okay, this is actually going to help us, but it's uh, only if we're able to embrace it in a healthy way. So if we are if it's like with anything, if we are doing or if we are using it in an unhealthy way, we will also have unhealthy results from them. So so I find that the technology is it's it's a good way of looking at a timeline, before and after something. Um, at least that's what I find inspiring. Um, so yeah.
Yeah, the world was very different pre-internet, and I'm old enough to
Mm,
remember it as well. I grew up with no internet. The internet didn't become a thing until I was an adult.
mm.
So I absolutely remember those days as well. And you're right. Does it have its conveniences and value that it brings? Yes, it does. I'm certainly not denying that.
That's
However,
why we're sitting here,
right. True, true story.
isn't it? Yeah. it wouldn't happen. I would have had to fly all the way to the US or and whatever, if it hadn't been for technology, which is so it is great.
Parts of it, yeah, but it's not
Yeah.
nothing is all great, right? And
Mm,
that's I try to encourage people that it's been a frustration of mine that people seem to gravitate towards binary decisions, and more than one thing can be true at the same time.
mm,
And like people, I say all the time, there is not a single person on the face of the earth that is either all good or all bad.
mm, mm,
Not one. Not one. Everybody's got
mm,
some good. Everyone's
mm,
got some not so good. Like that's
mm,
just the reality
mm,
of the situation. And we need to have more nuanced thought processes and more nuanced conversations around things if we're ever going to solve anything, instead of I'm right, I've already made up my mind. If you don't agree with me, you're wrong, and I don't like you, and you're an evil person, and blah blah
mm,
blah.
mm,
The United States has become very polarized over the last probably 15 years, and
mm,
I really don't know what's driven it. My theory is we actually have it so good that we're inventing problems to worry about and argue about.
mm,
Because you don't have to worry about where food is coming from for the most part. You don't have to worry about dying young nearly as much as people used to. Life
mm,
expectancy is
mm,
longer and less people are living in poverty, and those existential problems for the large part have been solved. And so now we're looking for things to worry about and complain about and argue about. And we
mm,
just make things up sometimes. It's wild
mm,
to me. I don't
mm.
understand it.
No, that 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 is a weird thing, I must say. I don't know if it's to do with this the social media, or also the whole media industry. You could say one thing is so me, but also the media industry. Why is it that a headline always have to be click
Hmm.
positive, so and you have to have all the negative because it's selling more, and I don't know. But there's also, when you think about societies, not just the American, but in general, and go back in history, the the relationship between the ruler of the country, and then you could say the people, or the previously it was more men, who had the capital, the money. So
Mm.
there was always a very tight relation. You could have the king and who was making the money, and how are they working together? Uh, if that relationship is becoming unhealthy, it is I don't think it is not helping democracy, and it's not helping societies in general. So the the better you can have conversations within your society, among people, open and be able to listen, have you have to make concessions and concede, and we're very much used to that in Denmark. We have so many parties, and we have a coalition at the moment, and so the society here is very much built on having discussions all the time, and then agreeing on, okay, what can we go with? Um, but that is under pressure. Democracy is really under pressure, which is, I find, a bit alarming.
Yeah, the one dynamic that's different in the United States than a lot of other places is the diverse ethnic makeup of the population. So
Mm,
when you've got it's pushing 350 million people now, and you've
mm,
got people of very different ethnic backgrounds, and I don't mean skin color, I mean the way they think about and approach life. So
mm,
there's Latino culture, and that Latino culture is very fragmented because if you're from Spain, that's very different than being from Haiti or
mm, mm,
Haitian. And that's very
mm,
different than being Mexican. So
mm,
we lump Latino into a group, but it's not really a group. It's lots of different
mm,
Latin countries. You've got African American, I'm Irish, you've got
mm,
Italian, you've got German. There's a lot of immigrants from Africa now. So there's a big population from Nigeria in the United
mm,
States. There's a big population from Somalia in the United States. There's a big population from Egypt in the United States, from India, from China.
mm,
And to get a coalition among all of those people, I understand why that part's difficult.
mm.
I don't understand the approach because
No.
I would think, at least I think, it's very easy to go back through history. And one of the things that gets talked about a lot in the United States, which is 100% true, by the way, is that the settlers came here and basically killed the Native Americans and took their land. That's true.
Mm,
That's absolutely what
mm,
happened. Without a doubt,
mm,
that's what happened.
mm,
That happened all over the world, though. Like
mm,
we have like all the lands in Europe have traded hands multiple times through different empires and different groups. The fact that they all had the same skin color and were killing each other to me doesn't make it any different than having different skin color and killing each other the way we did
mm,
it over here. But that's just my opinion. My point
mm.
is, how many more times are we going to take the same approach before we figure out it's not a very good approach? When are we going to
No.
quit fighting with each other and figure
Mm,
out a way to work together to make it work for all of us? That's the part that doesn't make sense to me. We've
mm.
proven this doesn't work. Why don't we try a different way?
Yeah. But what is it that we are, you could say, what are our driving forces, as a human?
Hmm.
It is very much fear, and it's greed, and then it's sex, because we are, animals, and we want to make family and whatever. But so that is part of it. But these sort of three um, abilities, um, we have to look at, in a different way, even if we are humans. Um, and I think looking at greed and fear is where we really want to try. At least that's where, my whole you could say calling with what I'm doing right now in my life and work is, how is it that we can find back to who we truly are? And it sounds, sort of, that's easy to say. Yeah, it is easy to say, and it's actually also easy to do, but we've made it very, very difficult for us, and we've built societies and traditions and structures and whatever, which is very much built on fear and greed. Um, so and we are, you could say, more or less, I use it, coded. We have our playlist, our habits that are so much part of us that it's really difficult to understand how is it not to be fearful. What is it actually to be a human who is not in fear? How is it to be able to listen to the bird? Can we actually hear the birds? And if we can hear the birds, maybe we are not fearful. Maybe we are not frightened anymore, or so and coming back to greed, why do we have that? For me, it's very much back to, if you are not in fear, and if you are also loving yourself, um, you are able to maybe go from not having to look after your ego all the time, which is sort of uh, we all have our egos, and an ego is helping us to protect ourselves when we need to be, having to perform something and do something. Of course, an ego is good, but an ego can also help us to keep being on the wrong track. So like if throughout my life, if I had not stopped listening to my ego, that, maybe I would have tried to do the same kind of job that I've done previously and not been able to sort of unfold my intuitive part of me and the more pioneering skills and whatever. And that might have made me unhappy, and it might even have made me sick or, whatever. So there's a lot we can actually do. If we look at words, or the two words, fear and greed. And of course, sex is also important because we want to have love in our lives, and we want to have families, and that sense. As long as it's happening also in a balanced way and in a loving and caring way. But for lots of reasons, we have gone out of sync with what is actually good for ourselves. And that is what I'm trying to do with what I do now, which is very much also talking about how important it is to understand what the future looks like, and not as something that is really complicated, but to be interested in what is it that we see in the horizon. And that you, as both as a leader, if you are leading other people, but also if you are just leader in your own life, try and look up and out, look up from the computer and from the mobile phone and understand what's going on. And I have such a good example of it, which I would like to give you. I spoke to an economist in Denmark. He is in the National Bank. And he wrote an article, and it really hit me. The headline was that we made a mistake in the National Bank of Denmark. He said, we did not look out of the window. What he meant, that we were not visionary enough. We were not intuitive enough. And I read the article, and I kept on writing to him a couple of times. And then I had a meeting just to talk to him about what was it he meant. And he was referring to two star economists in the US. And they had been much better at predicting the inflation crisis in 2021. And they did it, they are called Blanchard and Summers. And they worked together. And they did look into their data and their Excel sheets and whatever models and whatever they have. But they also looked out the window, so to speak, and looked out and saw what is happening in society, not just in the US. What is happening? What are they saying? And they were combining their data with what they saw, their insight. So they were using both their, rational, logical minds, data, but also their intuitive data. And then they were combining that, and then they were making their decision, what is it we should do? So they were actually predicting that this will happen. And Thomas, the economist, Thomas Hart, he was really annoyed, but, also they were still colleagues. but what we talked about, Thomas and I, was that I wanted to try and find out why is it that you are not using your intuitive skills, and why is it? And he was, I don't know if he was being 100% honest in his answer, but he said, yeah, well, it's easier for Summers and Blanchard because they are independent. They have their own company now. So, and I'm not agreeing with that. You can use your intuition and being an intuitive person also if you are if you are hired or if you are employed in a company or in a national bank. But the problem or the issue might be that we are not, you could say, allowed to express it, or we don't have the structures or the processes or the culture that, okay, if we are making a decision, everything should be documented. You have a business case and we should find all the data, just like in science. If you want to do something, you should prove everything. And that is really my point with also what I'm working with or writing about, energetic leadership. We are born, going back to your question early on, and what you liked on my website was our language. What is it that we're born with? We have an intuitive language that we're born with. And for some reason, we have been taught, we have ways of locking up our intuitive qualities. And that is going to change. Not just because I say it, but because people are suffering and they are becoming unhealthy because they are not using their full potential, and that makes them sick. We are all, I'm actually saying that we are all sick in some kind of way, because our nervous system is not calm. And maybe we don't even know what a calm nervous system is because we've never really tried it, because we're so used to living the way that we are. And that is what is becoming much more apparent to people on Earth, that we need to do something differently. And it's really quite simple. We need to come back to what we were originally, so that we can actually sense, and we can sense our body and we can use our senses. And I like the English word embodiment, that when we do something, we embody it into to ourselves. So it's really some kind of awakening, you could say, of who is it I am. It's not just the brain thinking and I have to figure out everything, because no, we are taught that we should figure out, and we should be able to document everything. But we have also a lot of help from our intuitive mind or soul. So yeah, that was a long comment on that one.
But very good. And like the fear thing, I always find that interesting because it's very easy to control people when they're afraid. If you offer the promise of safety, most people will follow you or give your words credence if they believe that you genuinely are or can offering them safety. And I understand what drives that because, like you talked about, we are animals. Lots of people like to deny that that's the truth, but it is the truth.
Mm,
And that fear is hardwired in there to keep us safe. Now, it used to be in a much different environment. And yeah, I don't want to drag it into an environmental conversation, but the people
mm,
that are worried about the actual environment are missing the point. The earth is it's always been a tough place to exist. It's not
mm,
just now, it's always been hard to exist. And again, it's never been easier to be a person than right now. This is by far the best time in human history to have ever been alive. And
mm,
some of that is because we've got all sorts of conditioned spaces now. Like people talk about global warming. 9 times more people die every year from cold exposure than heat, even in the
mm,
hottest places in the world. And
mm,
so the world is a hard place to exist to begin with. And it's a lot easier now because you can go inside to get warm, you can go inside to get cool. There's ways we have to handle those things now that didn't used to exist. You used to have to worry about going outside of the cave that you lived in and having a saber-toothed tiger grab you and drag you into the jungle and eat you. That used to happen as
mm,
well. Those types of things are very rare now, but that instinct that's been ingrained into our species for thousands of years still exists. So it's looking for what it considers threats.
mm,
And I think when we don't understand something, our first instinct is to take it as a threat. Instead
mm,
of being curious, like you talked about, instead of trying to understand it better, we keep it at a distance and try to be afraid of it.
mm,
And I think that's the default for most people. And it's one of the things we need to figure out how to get past. And I know it's something you talk about when you work with
mm,
companies. I know it's something that
mm,
you talk about in your book in terms of learning how to communicate instead of letting those things become roadblocks. I'd love to hear some of the ways in which you coach and talk to people to try to get them to change their mindset around fear and to increase communication in those situations.
mm. I think you have you can talk a lot about, mind, body, and soul. So what is it? How do you use your senses? And now I'm not thinking about just your thoughts, but so with your mind, we will say that we have our thoughts in our mind. In our body, we have our senses. You can feel something in your body. And then in your, people will say, soul, what is soul? Is it your heart? And what is it? Yeah, we can call it soul, we can call it heart, you can inner core, um, but usually we only use our thoughts and our feelings. And we don't go to the next, you know, our soul where we believe in something. Of course, you can believe in God and in the divine, and that can also be soul. When I talk about soul, I don't mean I'm not talking about religion. It's when I talk about energy, which is physics, and it's actually something we can measure. And it's also something that you have to, in some way, believe in. But where we keep ourselves in you could say the our threat or our fear is that when we only look at our body and our mind, and we only use our thoughts and our feeling. So we keep going round in the grind where you get a thought, and that makes you have some kind of feeling, and then you might do something, or you do not something, but you'll act. But people then go round and round, and we have all these thoughts, and it's actually also thoughts, so we're thinking the same old shit, same old playlist. And I do like music a lot, really, and I like old music also. But when it comes to thoughts, we should stop these old playlists we had, on the grind, because they will make us feel in a certain way, or makes us not do things that we, really should do, because that would help us. But when we start to try and believe in something, like I mentioned within, now they are economists, but they also have some thoughts about the situation. They also have some feelings about it. And then they add the last bit where they decide that they want to believe that this is, we use the data, we have feelings and thoughts about the situation, and we believe that this is what will happen. We might have an inflation crisis or whatever. But they have made a decision, or as an individual, you've made a decision, I believe in that. And we don't, as humans, we do not have contact with that part of intuition or our soul, because we simply cannot feel ourselves, or we do not take the time to calm ourselves, calm our thoughts, that will then calm our nervous system, that will then open up our consciousness, and then open up our intuition. So it's sometimes you could say we like to, we even know that it's healthy, unhealthy, whatever we're doing. But then it's so difficult not to do it. And of course, we're all doing things that we should not do, eat something stupid. I ate something today that I should have not done, some sweet, and, why did I do it? I just, felt sorry for myself, maybe. And then, so we're all doing, something that, this was really stupid, or we make mistakes. But when we start working with this, you could say, mind shift, then we will feel that, oh, this is actually feeling quite nice, because I can feel that my body feels differently. I can feel that it sort of calms my thoughts, and suddenly I'm making decision I hadn't even thought of, and that was a really nice decision I made yesterday, and I haven't even thought of that, but it just came to me naturally. Or, oh, I didn't fall into an argument. Normally I fall into an argument with that person because he or she triggers something in me. So by being more conscious about that sort of grind that can go on with our thoughts and feelings, and not having to believe what you are really longing for, you could ask yourself also a question: what is it that you would like to see more of in the world? What is it that you are longing for? If you can answer that question, then you are, or start to talk about it, because then maybe sometimes you don't even know the answer, but maybe just starting to answer it and giving a person maybe 10 minutes to start talking about, just listening. What is it? Then the person will slowly come closer to maybe what is it that they're longing for. But we're so used to having this autopilot playlist running around. So it's not something that is quickly done. But on the other hand, there's a lot of, I call it tailwind, because we are also humans, and we are all energy fields. You know, we have our own energy, and when we are working with our, you know, personal development, we are in a positive way, then we are also increasing the energy, because everything is, we're all connected, even if we don't think so. So we actually all connected in one big web, which is important to understand, because we have every chance to do something, and it doesn't cost $1 or anything, you know, from just being positive and thinking about what can I do better tomorrow than I'm doing today. Just from that fact, we are helping all people on earth to become a better place. So it's not something that has to cost a lot of money, or, you know, be very, very difficult. I know the changes can be difficult, but it's still at hand for everyone. So it's not just something that is available in the Western world. You could also say, sometimes I even find that maybe people in the not so Western countries, they have a better connection between their mind, body, and soul than we have in the Western world. That's, it's like we have lost something, connection to ourselves, and that is really what is making us unhappy and unhealthy. And that is going back to your previous question about the purpose. We can sense that something is missing, and sometimes we don't know what it is, but we can sense it in our system.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And the thing about change that I try to get people to understand is things will always change. It doesn't matter if you want them to or not, they're going to.
Mm.
Why wouldn't you try to impact that change or approach that change in the best way possible to deliver the best possible outcome to you and your life? Instead of resisting it, instead of fighting it, instead of complaining about it, why not find the best attributes about it and accentuate those and focus on those and try to maximize those, because you can't control some of the change, right? So, um, like the elections in the United States, the last
Mm.
several elections, I'd say the last 3 elections in particular, have been just so presidential elections I'm talking about,
Mm.
have just, people have talked about them like the whole world is going to end the next day if their candidate doesn't win.
Mm.
And it's both sides. It's not, that's not a one-sided thing at all. It's both sides of the aisle. I've never been affiliated with either major
Mm.
American political party because I disagree fundamentally with several things in both parties, and so I can't support either party the way I
Mm.
think about it. But here we are, 3 elections later, and everybody is still alive, and everybody's got jobs, and everybody's got food, and everybody's got shelter. Why why do you think people spend so much time focused on the bad stuff and let it prevent them from pursuing and enjoying the good stuff? Why do you think people do that?
I think it's very difficult to look at yourself, you know, and that is going back to looking out the window to try and understand, you know, what is it that's ahead of us? What is it we are seeing? What are the consequences of it? And what is it that we then, you know, the consequences of the future ahead of us? What are the consequences of what we need to learn, teach ourselves, teach each other, of new skill? And we all need to learn something new, not just the young guys or girls. Um, And for some reason, we as humans, we do not we do not really like change, and we do not like personal change. And we do not like to talk about what we're not good at and what mistakes we've made or what we feel ashamed of or whatever. Um, so that is really I think the biggest challenge we have. But it's also changing, fortunately, because we are becoming more aware of it. The young people are, highlighting lots of things. And we need that sort of conversation, both with ourselves, but also together in order to do that. And the reason, or not the reason, the way I'm using future trends to open up for personal development is by talking about these trends. So like in a workshop where people are given these 9 trends that I have in my book, it could also be, of course, others. But ask them to pick out 3 of those trends. And why did you choose, and ask them, why did you choose those 3? And it's so interesting. You can have, a group of leaders, and I'm not asking them to pick something which is personal or professional or related to their jobs. I just ask them to pick those 3 trends that they find interesting, and they will talk. They will in their reply, they will mix everything together. So it's like it's opening a treasure box, and suddenly you have input from both a professional perspective, but also a personal, and you have so many goodies that you can work with as a company afterwards, both on how they are going to change whatever they're doing, but also how they are going to change their culture or whatever, because a lot of it comes out in the open. And that is what is so interesting about us people. We talk about what is important to us, even without knowing that we're talking about it. So that is a way of getting something in through the back door, which is quite nice to, and then they can take it, on both in the company, or they can also work with it themselves. So it is opening up for the curiosity to be more aware.
Got it. And so that's how you've built your business, right? I know you've written the book, and we haven't talked about your book yet. We will. But the other part of your business is speaking engagements and workshops and kind of consulting, it sounds like, with businesses on how to align the company needs with the everybody that works at the company, the associates needs, so that everybody is kind of on the same page and is bought in to both sides, not just the company needs, but what do the employees need, so they'll be better employees because they feel valued and they're happy with the overall balance of their life. Do I have that right?
Mm. Yeah, I think the issue, just like you were asking previously about, the purpose of the company versus the purpose of the employees. What is difficult for employees is that how do I get in contact with management? How do I make them speak? How do I, that it can be really difficult. And I just saw that was a month ago that Gallup, there's a big company doing global research and analysis, and they have made the latest study is that people engagement is really declining. So
Mm,
people are getting more and more, not happy at work. So what can you do about it? And even John Clifton, who's American, said that there's an emotional recession in the US. He was referring to the US because he was at a media talking about it. But it's a global research, and the trend is more or less the same all over the world. But the funny thing is that a lot of managers are not getting any education. So I think it was 56% are not getting any education when they, become the manager.
yep.
And I also from where I have worked, I worked in the car industry, and they were doing a lot of education, but it was always technical education. And what we're seeing now is that if you want to upscale your company, of course, the technical skills, whatever industry you are in, is important. But the upscaling of the human skills are becoming much more relevant, because your employees will pick your company not just from the salary or where you're located or whatever, but very much so from what is it that you are doing to upscale me as an employee. And so a very simple thing to sort of improve employer engagement is to make sure that you get the education or onboarding, or but not just how to use the computer or the new chatbot or whatever, but also very much the personal part of it. And that is what the younger generations are. They want to be educated, and they want to get even as because they see the work as a very social place to go. It's not just a place where I get my money. It's also a place where it's important for me that I feel it's fun to be, and they're not just my colleagues, they're maybe even my sort of friends, and we are actually helping each other in also developing our skills, which is very different from maybe when we just did our work, and we've just tried to stay sane and learn from our mistakes.
Yeah, that's right.
So that's how it's changing.
Yeah, I think that's right too. And you're right. It used to be that you went to work, you did your job, then you went home to your family, and those two things were fairly separate. And there's been a lot of crossover between both of those. That may be good, that may not be good. I think it depends on the circumstance and the person. The other part of it is people now, they want to feel like a deeper or a bigger purpose. And I
Mm,
think people in our generation used to get that purpose out of doing the work. Like we
mm,
never thought about it esoterically, like, hey, I work at a widget factory. Why do we all need widgets anyways? Nobody ever thought
mm,
about that. It was, hey, I'm proud of the fact that I make widgets, and
mm,
I'm going to make widgets as good as I can. And then I'm going to go home and be with my family and be proud of what I do for my work. And I feel like both of those, both the wanting a higher purpose in a different way and not valuing just the work itself, um, has changed quite a bit. And
mm,
the second, I don't mean people being lazy. And look, some people are lazy. We had lazy people where I work too. I used to
mm,
ask them, how to do the job, because even though they wouldn't want to do it, they would figure out the easiest way to do it because they were lazy. And then I could do it their
Mm,
way and I could get it done faster. So that's how I used to use the lazy
mm,
people around me for information. But in today's society, I think both of those things, where people want to feel like a higher purpose, like I'm better than having to just do this or just do that. It doesn't mean anything to me, so I don't want to do it. I
mm,
think that comes across as lazy, but it's not actually laziness that's driving that behavior.
mm. But I think maybe, if if you are if you're not using your talent, you have a job and you go to work and you are you have to drag yourself to work because it's not really interesting for a lot of reasons. And I think what we'll see in the future is that we would like to use all our talent in the life that we are spending here on Earth. So how can I use this talent, maybe doing work 3 days a week, and I use some other talent 1 day a week, or maybe I can mix it all together. So we will see that it's not so it's more divided or not so straight like we in our generation. It was good if you got an education and you got a job and then you stayed in that for 40 years and then you retired. That's not how we would like uh, our lives to be and our working lives to be anymore. We would like them to be much more diverse, you could say. So that is also what we're seeing, that the people will, younger generations will come in and they will say, okay, if you are not educating me, not just technically, but also personally, I'm not staying here for very long. The job might be good, but I also need this and that. And sometimes we can find that they are very demanding and they are very,
Mm.
they're very young also. And how can you be so bold and ask for things like that? I didn't even do that. But on the other hand, it is also it's a good way of pushing change, and also hopefully opening up for some kind of dialogue in those organizations.
Yeah,
So
I
listening,
agree.
listening, listening is important.
Yes, that for sure. That's a good leader listens a lot.
Mm,
They listen a lot more than they talk, actually, in
mm,
my opinion.
mm.
Um, Talk a little bit about your book. What made you write your book, and what kind of feedback have you gotten from your book since you published it?
I was actually told to write the book in 2019, and I thought, I'm not a journalist, and what is this good book going to be about? And then I was thinking for 12 months, and I thought, okay, I think I have an idea what it's going to be. So that was really, listening in, and there's something more to my life than just what I thought had happened until those years, 2000. Then I started I started writing while I was still working. And that was a bit difficult because you have to do it in the evening and all that. So in 2022, I decided to go full time on writing the book. And I had done a lot of both own development work with myself, and I had done maybe also a lot of intuitive work that I was not really conscious about. Um, so I used my notebook and I could see that, okay, the concept, there's some kind of, red thread in what I have been writing down in my notebook for a couple of years. And suddenly it just, it just took off. And I wrote the book, finished it in 2023, came out, and now it's been out first it came out in Danish, and then it came out in English, and it's out as both a hard copy, but also as an audiobook. And that has been a great process. The book is divided into 3 areas, just like I've been talking right now. So the introduction, of course, is about what is energy and why is energy important for us to understand. And it's physics, and it's something we can measure, and maybe that's why we are beginning to understand it better now with our science minds. But then the 3 parts of the book is very much about the trend, so understanding the horizon, the consequences of it. The second part is about personal development. So how can you be much more conscious? How can you open your intuition? How can you combine that with your rational mind? And so in part 1, you practice your curiosity. In part 2, the personal development, you practice your presence to calm your nervous system, ultimately. And then the third part is really, how is it that we transform all this into transformation in whatever part of the company where you're situated? What kind of role do you have? Because when we as humans are changing, our customers and our employees will change too. And so the whole organization will change, the value chain, the business models, you name it. So that is what the book is about. But it's, one thing is the book, but it's more, a movement, you could say, of understanding how we can lead ourselves and our companies, but also our societies in new ways. Some people call it that we are getting more spiritual. You could call it whatever you want to. For me, it's very important that we understand how we work as energetic people, because that's what we are. And then we can put different labels on it. But that's where, when you hear about spirituality in combination with business, people think, they don't align. And that's where it's becoming a little bit difficult to communicate, because you get a lot of pushback. And that's why I use the back door to talk about trends, and then you talk about yourself, and then we don't really talk about what you have you could have all kinds of assumptions of how things are, but if you try and start to surrender into what you are longing for, something will open up. But it's a huge positive way that is helping us to build a new and better world, which I find is so relevant, that we have so much potential that we are not unlocking, and we need that potential to come out. So we are only using maybe, 5% of our capacity. So imagine, it's like the iceberg. We have so much, we can get not just from our intuitive competencies, but when we combine it with our rational mind, and we can even combine it with also our, AI person. And I think that is a relevant comment also why energetic leadership is important. Because if we do not have ourselves as a whole human being, we might see that AI will be cognitive AI very soon, or true AI. And if we are only putting shit into AI, then we will also produce some shitty AI results and whatever.
Totally. Yes.
So
That's exactly right.
So if we really need to, as a human, we need to be at our forefront, at our best, and then AI will also then be the best help for us, in the way that we would like it to be, because of course it can also get out of control, AI. So we really need to, embrace all our qualities and evoke them.
For sure. And for the listeners, we'll have links to all of this in the show notes. So if you want to find Gitte's book, which is called Energetic Leadership, we'll have a link to it in the show notes. You don't have to go far. Gitte's services, so she does keynote addresses to businesses, and she does mentoring and coaching. And the link, it's all on her website. We'll have that link down in the show notes, so you don't have to go far to find her stuff. One of the things I do, Gitte, is so I ask a lot of questions, and I feel like we always cover a wide range of topics with our guests, and you're no different. We're fortunate we attract very high quality people to the podcast, and I think to be thinking about how do we build better lives, what actions do we take to be purposeful. I think you have to be thinking a couple steps down the road to do that, so that tends to attract higher caliber people. But we can't cover everything, and I want to make sure we don't miss anything important. So, is there anything I didn't ask you, or any topic that you feel strongly about that we should talk about while we're here in front of our guests?
Um, I would like to say that it's really important for the listeners to understand how much they can do themselves right now, while they're listening. So that is really, I'm often asked, what is it I can do, and for me, it is to be still, to simply, try and cut off whatever noise you have. So try and just have a quiet moment for yourself, to try and sense what is it that you are longing for? What is it, what is it your body is telling you? Or what is it you would like to change in your life? But primarily, just be still and don't think about it so much. Just listen to what is the body is telling you, and eventually what will happen. So, and that is sort of the very personal thing. There's a lot of, also good questions and exercises in the book. But the other thing I would like to say is that that is a very personal thing that you could do, but it's also helping our democracies. And I think we are at a place in time where we need to embrace also very good conversations, both like we've had today, but wherever you go, have an open heart and have the conversation with whoever you are talking to, and be curious and be aware and be present in your conversation with that person, because that is also helping our frequency, and that will help our world to be a better place. And then that will hopefully also lead to that you will see doors opening in whatever you are longing for. So I don't think we have missed out something. I know there's a lot to talk about, and we could have gone on for hours, but yeah, that's part of life. The conversation will go on.
For sure. Well, let's just keep in touch. Like
Yeah.
I'd love to have you back on because the topic's so important. There's lots of things to talk about. Like we've been talking about, things change. And
Hmm.
as you keep working with people and you keep working with companies, I'm sure you'll come across other examples and other topics that are important. So let's just you and I keep in touch and we can do this again somewhere down the road. I'd love to do it.
Me too. Yeah, the changing world.
Yeah, for sure. So well, Gita, thank you so much for coming on tonight. Really enjoyed our conversation. Super interesting for the listeners. Again, in the show notes, we'll have a link to Gita's website, which is where the book Energetic Leadership is. So, and again, that's not only available in hard copy, it is an audiobook as well. And I will add that there is some material that she makes available to you so you can kind of preview what's in the book before you purchase it. So, like, there's a lot of really great information. So make sure you check her website out. And then she does the keynote speeches and keynote addresses and the mentoring. So all that stuff is available. But you can also stay tuned because we'll have her back on the show somewhere down the road and continue our conversation. So, Gita,
Wonderful.
thank you so much. Really appreciate you coming on tonight.
Thank you, Joe. It's been a pleasure.
Yeah, me too. Have a great week.
Thank you.
Okay,
All the
bye bye.
best. Bye.
Okay, guys, there you go. So Geeta did a great job. Really glad we got to have her on. Such a smart lady. And I love kind of her calmness and the approach that she takes in discussing topics that can be confusing, that can be difficult to talk about for some people or think about for some people. I think she just brings kind of a really calm and great energy around those things and is a great facilitator for people to have those thoughts. So, make sure you check her website out. She's got the book Energetic Leadership on there, and you can have her do a keynote address or conversation with you and or your business. And then she does coaching and mentoring as well. So super awesome to have her on the podcast. We will have her back on like we talked about there at the end, and just really appreciate her coming on and spend some time with us tonight. So because for what it's worth, we do our recordings at night and she's 5 hours ahead of us. So it was really late where Gita was in Denmark, and she was good enough to stay up and have that conversation with us, which we truly and truly appreciate. So thank you again, Gita. We'll talk to you soon. But guys, for now, James puts it up over here every day. Head over to the website, saltygingertalk.com. Podcast episodes are there. Links to social media accounts are there. We publish a newsletter every weekday. You can subscribe to there. Like, share, comment, subscribe to the podcast, whatever platform you consume it on. Make sure you come back and check out our next episode. We keep finding great people. They keep having all these great thoughts and tips and ideas and conversations that can help you build the life that you're looking for. You don't want to miss any of that stuff because it's awesome. Our guests are awesome. They do a great job. We're going to keep finding them. Make sure you check out the next podcast episode. We will see you there.